Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors, America's only daily outdoor TV show. Your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to Panhandle Outdoors. I'm Winston Chester. Glad you're here this Monday morning. Starting off a big week here in the Florida Panhandle as far as outdoor activities, some great weather. But let's look at the weather brought to us by, Gulf Coast Air Conditioning. Drew Pollard and a hard-working crew up there taking care of our everyday comfort needs. Talking about being comfortable, high of 84, low 71. The temperature at the end of the pier is hanging in there around between 78 and 79 degrees. And the king mackerel are moving up and down the coast, or moving up the coast, and then going out and then coming back in. So good situation there. Let's take a look at we always like to do the Monday moon forecast brought to us by Mountain Dew. Get out and do. We got the full moon 1 week from today is the full moon. So we're waxing this week. It's going to be a really good week of fishing. I promise you, this is one of the top weeks of the year. Out of 52 weeks a year, the full moon going into May will be one of the top weeks of fishing. The tide chart brought to us by Kent Forest Lawn. Take a look at the tide today. We have a low tide at 2:04 this morning and a high coming in at 3:38 this afternoon. Good strong tides the next couple of days. For the weekend, it won't be quite as strong as it was last weekend, but next weekend, looking on tide charts, or next week is really strong tide, so that will be important. Looking at the winds coming in from the south-southeast at about 10 to 12. All right, let's take a break, come back with our special guest. Welcome back and welcome to Panhandle Outdoors again, my good friend Wilbur Miller. Good morning.
Good morning, Coach. How are you today?
We're doing well.
Great.
I talked to Wilbur the other day. We were talking about fishing, and he's one of the consummate outdoorsmen, and born and raised here in Panhandle, and did all kind of cool things, and still does a lot of fishing.
I do. Don't move much left to do, but I do it all the time. The river's been bad. Hadn't had a chance to go to the river. That's my favorite fishing, down at the river.
Yeah.
But it's going to get right, and next week's going to be it.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Be good.
We're looking at, we're talking about, the other day, we're talking about different things we did. We don't do as much of, but one of them was we hit on red horse sucker fishing and gigging and all. So tell folks where you grew up and all.
Okay. I was raised in Calhoun County, up there above Clarksville on Highway 73 on a little farm in the Carr community. Went to Carr School. From Carr, went to Frank High School. Stayed down there 2 years. It closed and went to Blountstown to graduate. I attended Chipola, did not graduate, attended Chipola. And then from there, I was hired on with the Florida Highway Patrol and stayed for 30 years.
State trooper for 30 years?
30 years, and 29 of them was here in Bay County.
You were fortunate to be here in Bay County.
Oh, I tell you, this was just the Lord's blessing. Lord's blessing.
Well, you know, that area I can imagine, of course, I grew up not too far from in Gadsden County, a little bit east of there, but back then the woods and water were just abundant with game and all. But most people don't know about the red horse suckers, so tell them some of those experiences. Okay,
red horse suckers run those creeks in the spring to spawn. They usually starts in late February, March, and April. What we did, and the easiest thing to do back then, everybody else done, we put called a pin, which was a trap in the creek, and you more or less stop any movement of fish going up and down that creek, and you open up we call it a trap, a gate, let the fish go in, you close it back and get in by hand and catch those suckers. Mm-hmm. And they were real tasty. People say, I don't like suckers. Well, that's because they hadn't eaten any fresh ones, because they were really good. But the water was cold, the weather was cold, but us kids, we just had a wonderful time going sucker fishing on 10 Mile Creek. And I'm sure they still do it. All the woods is closed like it used to be. Used to just go into where you wanted to and fish, but it can't do that anymore.
Well, you hit on two things. First of all, they taste good.
They're good. They're tasty.
Yeah, and the other thing I can remember, those nights were cold.
It was cold. And you know something else about the sucker, it has a lot of bones in it. Mm-hmm. And if you learn how to gash, gash it, to cut those bones up, then when you cook it, then the bones disappear. And that's what makes the fish good, is you don't have to pick those little bones out of them. But they're only good in the spawning time of the year. But we had a good time doing it.
And it's interesting how different areas, more over our way, we'd had like a frog gig, and we would gig some, and then over there, his area, they would trap them. And all the little feeder creeks, and sometimes the creek didn't have to be all that big. They would go way up in there.
They go up as much as 5 or 6 miles up that creek. After they've come up Chipola River and go into the creek, they do. We fished 10 Mile Creek, but 4 Mile, Juniper, and Cypress all had suckers in them.
That's special. And you do wonder if people are still doing that now. If any of y'all out there still doing that, let us know. Send us some pictures and all. It'd be interesting and all. When I always thought about the water clarity, you know how clear the Chipola is, and then those feeder creeks that go into Chipola, that was just pristine, clear water.
Yeah, it got dark when heavy rain.
After rain.
But after it clears up, it's clear, and you can get in there. And we used, originally first started doing it, it's cut, everybody know what lighted splinters are. We cut lighter splinters, bundle them together, light them up, and that's why we'd walk in there at night looking for the fish. Mm-hmm. But then later on, you come to using sacks around a stick and put kerosene or diesel on it, and you had a bright torch. But we didn't have any electric lights then. Now they're using electric lights, I understand.
Yeah, and we had the old Coleman lantern also, but if you bumped it real hard, the mantle would break.
Yeah,
we get stranded.
Sure would.
It wasn't hard to bump it real hard when you're bouncing around and everything. That's really cool. And with the old lighter knots, there are not many people left that can talk about going in the woods with old lighter knot and burning the old splinters and all. The fat wood lighter, that's cool.
And one thing that was so good about those suckers, we would cook them right there on the bank of the creek. Sometimes before we got to getting a gas stove, we would actually cook them over the fire. We put the frying pan in the fire and cook them like that. But no matter how you cooked them, they were fresh and they were good.
Did you take a little bit of grease in there with you, a little cooking oil?
Yeah. Well, you know, they now say we use hog lard. And it really hurt me a lot, you can tell, but everything was cooked in hog lard, and we didn't think nothing about it.
How many shows you get to watch that talk about this kind of stuff? I have, first-hand experience doing these kind of things here. It just not many shows. I'm not bragging on the show. I'm bragging on the people that were able to do that and still have a love and passion for the outdoors and could do it in this area. And you and your buddies enjoyed it, didn't they?
We did. It was friends and family up there. What we did sometimes, and it was cold weather, and those fish were in that pen we had. And if we could get our foot on, they come up under what we call the upper wire, and you'd walk that, and if you get one under your foot, somebody'd have to go under the water and get him. So what we'd look for is somebody that hadn't been before and tell them that's what they had to do. Well, they didn't want to do it. So one of us would go under and get the fish, so now there's nothing to it. When they got in it, they didn't stay long because that water was cold. But that was just the fun we'd do, is to encourage them to do things like that.
I had some great memories and all doing that, and it was fun times. Okay, we're going to take a break. Be right back with Wilbur Miller. Okay, welcome back. Sitting here with Wilbur Miller, and we're going to talk about some of the things he's been able to experience and all. But you want to say a special good morning to someone?
I'd like to special welcome to morning to my sister Jairus and Mike Pitts. They live in Albany, Georgia, and I understand they watch it on YouTube. And good morning. How are y'all today? And it's great.
Okay, and also, your grandson was playing baseball and all. So
yes.
Student of the month.
Yeah. My grandson Mark Miller was on the baseball team over at Rutherford, and a day or two ago he was picked as 850 Student of the Month, and I thought was proud of the boy.
Congratulations.
What was so good, he was failing. He was doing failing until he got into the baseball, and then he's picked up to all A's this year.
What a testimony.
It is. That's good.
Yeah.
The coaches, the coaches done it.
Yeah. And you got to look around all across America. You hear these stories. I've witnessed them myself as a coach, and seeing how these kids get involved in something at school and fall in love with it and just sort of get straightened out, and boom, they do well. So congratulations to him, and good morning to your sister and folks up there in Albany, Georgia. Now, talking about school and all, when you were growing up in school, you had a special teacher.
I did. I went to Carr Elementary, and the guy that meant so much to me in my life was Hub Chasen. And we just called him Mr. Chasen. And he was a real outdoorsman. He was a big guy. He was about 6'6", but he believed in the outdoors. In his classroom, he had a display of the artifacts he had got out of Chipola River. Petrified wood, petrified bones, all kind of teeth, arrowheads. anything like that was in that river, he dove them up himself, and he had them on display for all of us to look at in the classroom, which was great. He wrote a book later on about it, but right now I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah.
And he has since passed on, but he was great for that area, and he dove in Chipola River, and he did a real unique thing, and I never seen him do it, but said he'd take a water hose and tie it on an inner tube, put the water hose in his mouth, and that's the way he would breathe while he was down in the water. So that was unique for him doing that, but he was a real outdoorsman.
The name Hub Chasen is legendary here in the Florida Panhandle because what he did, what Wilbur just mentioned, he was the first one ever to do it organized. And folks that walked along or paddled along, oh, there's an arrowhead, pick it up. But what Mr. Chasen did, he was able to get in there, and I've heard this story from so many people that knew him and grew up in that area, and he was the only one doing it. And he was able to get it up, especially the upper end of that Chipola, all the way down there in that area where no one really had ever done it. And his collection was massive.
Yeah. He's done most of his diving on Chipola River at what they call Looking Trumbuls. That's just south of 274 on Chipola River. In the summertime, when the river gets low, there's actually a rapids down there. It's about a 2 or 3 foot drop in the river there. I mean, it's real interesting to look at, but if it's going this high, you don't see it. But it gets low, it's there, and that's where he did most of his artifact finding is in that Chipola River area around the Looking Trumbuls there.
Look and tremble, because you look at it and you start thinking, I don't want to go there. And that's how I got his name. You know?
That's right. That's right.
And what he was able to do, he collected them, and nobody really cared that much about him, other than a couple of arrowheads and all. And I don't know, he had a daughter, had some family members and all, and I understand a lot of his collection was donated to the State Museum there in Tallahassee. I'm not really sure. I've often wondered what happened to some of the things he found were just something. And I'm sure some of the family members were able to keep them too. But that end of Chipola, you can imagine the Native Americans and all the things they were able to do. So Hub Chasen was your teacher.
He was him. He was it. He was a teacher, coach. We had during our PE class in this early spring when it got warm, and after school started in September, one of the things in our PE class, we'd go to the creek and go swimming during the PE class. Yeah, we were on one of the few schools that had the ability to do that. We didn't have a pool, but we had a creek down below us there.
Now, can you imagine going to PE class, and could you imagine doing that now? How many lawyers would be waiting in line at the front schoolhouse door? Right. You mean you took them in the water? But this was the innocence of America that we still had back in that time, where you could just do things like that.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I was just precious to that.
I can imagine that. One of the things I always was fascinated about in that area was the trees and all. The trees were massive too.
Yeah. And a lot of them got blown down during the storm. Yeah. But along in Chipola River, there was some big old massive trees covered in moss, like we've always seen, and that's just unbelievable. And I hate to see they're gone, but they're gone.
Yeah. And in the storm, and nature, we always talk about man the storm. Every now and then, nature will take its toll on things, and that's the situation there too. Yeah. Now, off that Chipola area. Up in the creek and all those little feeder creeks, was any special time of the year they all really did good other fishing other than sucker and everything? Did y'all catch any other fish in there?
Well, you catch a few brown, but not many.
The water's cool, isn't it?
Yeah, the creeks were shallow, and there was a few fish, but not many. And if you fished it very much, there just wasn't any fish in there.
And did you see very many frogs and alligators?
No. There was one alligator hung around the mouth of the creek, what we call it down where it got Chipola. There was an alligator there, but we never seen none nowhere else.
Did y'all give him a nickname or anything?
No,
Wilbur's pet?
No, we just stayed away from him. We didn't want nothing to do with him.
That's funny. Yeah. And it really didn't do much frog gigging then.
No, it didn't. But you know, there at Chipola River, where 10 Mile Creek goes in Chipola River, they call it the Old Schumann Ferry. Mm-hmm. There was an old ferry that crossed the river right there. When I was a kid, that old ferry was laying in the mouth of 10 Mile Creek, but since it's rotted, deteriorated, and gone, but it was called Schumann Ferry, right there on Chipola River. It went from the west side to the east side of the river.
We see all these bridges and all we always take for granted. At one time, there was a ferry probably crossing and taking people across there, especially these country roads with a bridge. That's interesting. Okay, we're going to take a final break and come back with Wilbur Miller. All right, welcome back, folks. Let's take a look at our fishing game times today, brought to us by Blue Water Outriggers in Port St. Joe. We're looking at this morning, 6:29 to 8:29. This afternoon, 6:52 to 8:52. Real quick, let me touch on the alligator harvest permit. If you've got the alligator harvest permit, the applications go out. They're open right now, and they're going to close the 16th. But if you want an application, you need to get it in. They'll be posted. The 16th will be next Monday. So if you're interested in hunting alligators and all, you were telling me you had a nephew that tell that quick story real quick.
A year or two ago, they were gator hunting, and they killed a pretty good sized gator and put him in the boat. He was dead. All of a sudden, he come alive in that boat, and I don't know exactly how they got him killed, but it was an exciting time. He said, with that gator alive in that boat.
That would be exciting.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want that kind of excitement though.
I'd be out of the boat and wading in the water or swimming.
Real quick, we'll get to the fence working, but before we get to that, talk about just real quick. In the 30 years you were a state trooper in Florida, what was your biggest? What was some of your challenges you faced?
Well, I was first Duval County, is where I was first stationed. I stayed over there for about 10.5 months, and I had been on just a short period of time, working Interstate 10 West, and they gave me a call one morning about 9 o'clock to go to 301 North. They had a deputy sheriff had been killed in McClenny in Baker County, and the suspect had ran into Georgia, and they wanted me to go over and be observing on 301 in case he can come back. Well, you got to realize now, I'm 21 years old, real dry rookie. The only gun I had was a .38 Special. Didn't have a shotgun or rifle or nothing. Here I'm going after a fugitive that had already killed one officer, and I just couldn't imagine what I was going to do. So I rode on up that way a little while, and they called me back a little bit and said, the last sighting, he was headed south on the road I was on. I said, whoa, what now? And they told me, they said, just observe. If you see him, don't attempt to stop him. And the next, they told me it was a road that turned from the road I was on going into McClenny. And they called back later and told me, said, observe now, he's going back to McClenny, and just stand by in that intersection. That made a relief to me to know that I wasn't going to be facing a killer.
Wow.
That was great. Wow. But I had some good experiences. In '69, I went to Miami and stayed for the 30-day detail, wound up for 90 days. We were doing security over a metro officer that got hooked in with the mafia, and they were in the process of trying to prosecute some of them, and they attempted to kill him. So that was real interesting to learn all I could about the mafia down there, and it was like the book says about mafia, we saw it firsthand. It was there. It was very interesting. I had a chance to go to Democrat National Convention, Republican and National Convention in Miami in '72. That was very interesting, and it's just been things like that you wouldn't have got to do if I hadn't been on the force.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, a couple minutes left. How'd you get into the fence business?
1981, I got to thinking, I said, all I know is law enforcement and farming. I said, farming's out. It's just too hard, too expensive, and too many chances to take. And I said, I need to do something. So I thought about the fence business. I had done a little bit earlier when I really got some title on finance, so I did some fence work. So I got to trying to do it, and I went to some of the locals and bought material and done a couple of jobs. I said, I can't afford this. I'm not making any money. So I got to thinking, I got to find out where this material's coming from, and these guys didn't want to share it with me. So I was on the road in uniform one day working, and I said, somebody has got to be getting this material in. Lo and behold, here comes a truck down the road loaded with chain link fence stuff. I said, I'm fixing to find out where this sucker come from. So I turns around and got up on 231. I was going to pull that truck over, but on the door was the phone number, the name of the company. So I just rode alongside of him and wrote that information down. And then I first turned around, I just turned and went back north. Well, I didn't know what it had done to the driver, but later on I found out. And so that afternoon I called the company I had the phone number of, made a deal, started buying fences material from them. Today I'm still buying stuff from Georgia Fence Wholesale.
How about that? That's great.
The next week after I called them, they sent me some material. A guy named Bob was the truck driver. And my troll car was sitting there in the yard. He said, are you the one that pulled up side of me on 231? I said, yeah. He said, I just knew I had done something. I just couldn't hardly wait to see what I had done. But you turned around, I just couldn't figure out what was going on. But That was interesting to the truck driver. He got a little bit afraid.
That always scares people when that state trooper pulls up next to them or pulls up right behind them and all. But can you believe right now the price of wood, how wood is
Oh my gracious, it's unbelievable how the price of wood's gone and everything else is going along with it. But wood took a drastic increase here a few months ago.
Yeah.
It's been real big.
But business is you're still doing good business and all. People still calling you a lot.
I still get a lot of calls, doing a lot of work,
So-
staying busy. I'm too old to do any physical work, so I do the part most people like. I go collecting the money.
His son doing all the work now. He got him well trained, and they came out and did a fence for me. It looks great. And we all can build a fence, but you can't build a fence like they can, and you can't build it near as quick as they can. It take me a week, and they did it like in less than a day.
Right.
And, well, we're about to run out of time. Wilbur got more stuff to talk about. You have to come on again.
Thank you. Thank you, Winston, for having me on.
And let me know when the next fish fry is. They're good about that.
Winston will come eat fish with me.
I will, right there in the driveway. I'll tell you about that. Thank y'all for watching. We got to get out of here. Appreciate the viewership. Y'all do something good today for your fellow man. You have a great day, and God bless.
Thanks for watching America's only daily outdoor TV show, Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester, featuring hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.